On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, Elon Musk utters one word on Twitter that makes a lot of North American Tesla owners happy. Plus, free unlimited lifetime supercharging is back for Model S and Model X, an update on the Model 3's long-awaited Smart Air suspension option, and more. What's happening, friends? I'm Ryan McCaffrey. To my left, Daisy the Boxer Puppy. This is episode 211 of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast for August 18th, 2019. And yes, I am back, quote-unquote, live, as much as a once-a-week podcast can be live. I was at Disneyland with my family last week, my, of course, wife and daughter, and then my brother-in-law and his family, which we've been lucky enough to get to go the last few years with them. And boy, I love it there. It is so much fun. I love it. And my daughter loves it as well. The new Star Wars area was a huge hit with her. That's all she wanted to do was go on the Millennium Falcon ride over and over. So really good time to be had there. And I want to thank all of you for allowing me that time off to spend with my family there, take a little break. I hope you enjoyed the podcast that I had prepared for you. In my absence there, it was good to connect with Mike Falcone again. I enjoyed it, so I hope you did too. One other thing to note here on that, actually, I do owe a quick apology to the early access Patreon backers, early access on up, because I could swear that I had uploaded last week's vacation episode before I left. But it turned out, I failed to do that, and instead of the Patreon backers getting it a week early, they ended up getting it a few hours late. So I genuinely feel terrible about that, because you should have gotten it nice and super early. It was done. I feel really bad about that, so I do apologize. Please know that it was very much not on purpose. It was very much an accident. As for this week, I am recording a tad early, not quite as early as last time, but I'm recording on Thursday night this week. My parents are in town this weekend. They're going to be staying with us, and I'll tell you, my parents are the lightest sleepers on the planet. I record the show downstairs here in my little home office slash TV room slash whatever it is. I guess the Daisy's crate's in here. It's sort of a multi-purpose room, I guess. But the bedroom where my parents will be sleeping is directly above, and I know I'm just so loud. I've got the broadcast booming voice, and I can't help it when I do this. I have to talk this way. I know they'll be disturbed by it. So getting the show done a little early. If anything major breaks on Friday, please accept my apologies in advance, and I will cover it next week. And with that, on to the week's Tesla news. First up, free unlimited lifetime supercharging is back for the Model S and Model X, new purchases, that is. So while I was away, Tesla dusted off an old demand lever, and they have once again begun including free unlimited lifetime supercharging with every new Model S and Model X. That's important to note, this does not apply to the Model 3. I've said before how Tesla, in my opinion, needed to differentiate the S from the 3 a bit more in order to keep the S to be super appealing. To me, there just hadn't been enough, for the most part, enough of a reason to spend that much more money on a Model S. Because, a Model S is a good bit more than a 3. I mean, a fully maxed out performance Model 3 is still a decent bit less, especially now after the price cuts, a decent bit less than the base Model S. Well, to Tesla's credit, I think they have now done a pretty good job of adding some separation between those two sedans. Now, I'm leaving the X out of this because it's an SUV, totally different class of car, and until the Y comes out, it doesn't really have any comparison in the Tesla product lineup. But anyway, the Model S now has the next generation Smart Air suspension, 370 miles of range, just again, stop on that for just a second. Just take that in. 370 miles of range, which is almost 20% more than the top-end Model 3 range-wise. And it's also, by the way, that 370, hey, that's creeping closer to a big psychologically important milestone of a number, that being, of course, 400 miles. And then the Model S now as well has once again got the free unlimited lifetime supercharging. So yes, there's still a fairly substantial gap in price between the S and the 3, but both of them have now seen price drops this year. So, they're both a really good value, and they do both now offer, I feel, different things for different people. Of course, given how often Tesla tends to go back and forth on their policies and prices and perks and things like that, both for good and occasionally for bad, it is fair to wonder how long the free unlimited lifetime supercharging will last this time. If I had to guess, and hey, I've got a podcast, what else am I going to do but try to predict what Tesla's going to do, I think it'll probably be a while this time. Honestly, I do think this is going to stick for a while, because this seems like something that Tesla wouldn't want to or have any incentive to remove until they had a bigger and shinier demand lever to pull on the Model S and the Model X, like, say, a major interior refresh and or major exterior refresh. And as we all know, Elon has said pretty matter-of-factly that we should not expect that anytime soon. So if you are in the market for an S or an X, you've got a nice little bonus waiting for you when you order, in the form of unlimited lifetime supercharging. Now, next up this week, some disappointing, but I have to say not altogether unexpected news at this point in time here in August of 2019. Elon Musk confirming that the Model 3 won't be getting a smart air suspension option anytime soon. He was responding to a question about smart air suspension on Twitter, and Elon said, quote, "No plans to introduce air suspension on Model 3 at this time," end quote. So now the reason that people have continued to wonder about this is because Elon he's mentioned it here and again over the course of over a year. In fact, he had originally mentioned it in response to a question from me, because I was one of those people super keen on getting that smart air suspension due to my strange driveway situation, which I ended up rectifying by putting in a little concrete speed hump on one side of the front of my garage. Well, front meaning closest to the garage door, so that the downhill side of the car gets up onto that little speed hump and creates enough clearance for the car to get in and out of there without bottoming out. I know this is a problem for literally no one but me. This is, unless you also live on a hill in San Francisco. Anyway, back then, so I went and looked it up, actually. It was May 10th, 2018. So, a year and a quarter ago now, I had asked Elon, any chance we can get an update on dual motor and performance Model 3 pricing and specs? Because this was before those things had been announced. And then I said, air suspension as well if you're in an extra good mood. And he replied at the time saying, Tesla will enable orders the end of next week for dual motor all-wheel drive and performance, starting production on those in July, which they did. And then he also added air suspension probably next year. So he did say probably. In his defense, he never promised it. And again, as I mentioned a moment ago, at this point, I don't think it's any surprise at all that there's no plan to introduce air suspension to the Model 3, because we probably would have heard about it by now if it was happening. If I'm being honest, I don't think Tesla needs to burn the resources to even develop a smart air suspension package for the Model 3, because Tesla is selling every single Model 3 that they can make right now. There's just no need to introduce more complexity into the production line, especially where every bit of efficiency, both from a manufacturing perspective and from a financial perspective matters to Tesla. Now, as much as I would have loved to have had it on my car, in general, the overall sentiment seems to be that the Model 3 market just isn't demanding an air suspension option. You notice that this is not a thing that you hear bubbled up in the community very often anymore. It was a talking point. I was one of the people, again, leading the charge on that, but before the additional variants of the Model 3 came out, but there just doesn't seem to be a lot of pent-up demand in the market for an air suspension option on the Model 3. Now, perhaps it was in development, and maybe any efforts that were going to go into that at one point, they shifted it over instead to the next-gen smart air suspension for the S and the X that just rolled out on the Raven models, which, if that were the case, that would honestly seem to be, to me, in hindsight, of course, the benefit of 2020 hindsight, a smarter use of those resources. But anyway, to conclude here, if you are a person that's been holding out on a Model 3 purchase waiting for this, you've got a pretty definitive answer here that it is not coming. So you can either feel comfortable placing your order knowing that it's not coming anytime soon, if ever, or maybe you'll decide that you really need an air suspension and the Model 3 is not for you, in which case you may be looking at the Model S instead, which if you do, you're going to pay more, but now with the Raven stuff, you're going to get a whole lot higher range. So there are some definite additional benefits to stepping up to the Model S in addition to just that next generation version of the smart air suspension. And in fact, in general, just taking a bigger picture view of this, kind of pulling out to the 10,000 foot view, as I like to say, I really don't think we're going to see any substantial changes to the Model 3 for some time. Of course, Tesla makes changes small changes on a weekly basis, as Elon and the team have said time and again, but I don't think we're going to see any major changes to the Model 3 for quite a while, because Tesla is continuing to simplify the manufacturing process rather than make it more complex. The car is amazing, the car is a home run, and they're just going to keep cranking them out as they are. The Gigafactory 3 is going to be spinning up, producing cars here before too long in Shanghai. They continue to ramp production in Fremont, inching up towards 7,000 cars a week. So that is the way of things. It is efficiency and volume, not adding in additional options, at least for the time being. Now, on the other hand, the next story this week, from something that Model 3 is not getting to something that Model 3, well, in this case, and S and X, are getting here in North America, it looks like North American Teslas will finally be getting Spotify as a streaming audio option. Yes, you heard that right, my friends. One of the longest requested features seems to finally be coming to North American Teslas. European Tesla owners have had Spotify since Tesla launched over there, but Elon Musk has now seemingly confirmed that it's on the way stateside. Someone had tweeted Elon saying, "Would love to have Spotify premium support," and Elon replied with a one-word answer, "Coming." Of course, this being Elon, we can't even remotely guess as to when it's coming, because Elon did not even give an ETA, and yes, by ETA, I don't mean estimated time of arrival, I mean Elon time approximation. But it does seem like that Spotify is finally imminent for North American Teslas in the fleet. As you all know, Slacker has been Tesla's in-car streaming music provider since the Model S launched in 2012. I don't hate it as much as a lot of people seem to hate it. I know, but there's a lot of love for Spotify out there. I feel like I've got my Slacker trained reasonably well. I mean, could it be better? Yeah, would I like to hear some deeper cuts? Sure, but it's still, I told you my strategy for building up, personalizing my Slacker account. I think that was maybe a month or so ago that I talked about that. But, it's still, I would say every day it still throws a new song here or there at me. It does continue to throw songs at me, that I haven't thumbed up or thumbed down, that I'm just kind of like, well, I don't dislike this enough to thumb it down, but I don't like it enough to give it the thumbs up, so I'm just gonna skip it. And I do keep getting those. Like those, that would be my biggest complaint about Slacker is the things that I'm undecided on. It seems to really want me to decide on them one way or the other. But anyway, back to Spotify. As those of you may remember who've listened to the Elon interview that I did back on episode 200, I did try to ask Elon about Spotify during my interview, but at the time, he kind of sidestepped the question, and I say that not in any sort of malicious way. Like I'm not saying he dodged the question, but he just kind of he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Tesla had bigger fish to fry. He seemed to kind of think, well, that's not a thing that we're worrying about right now. But it would seem that now, what is this, 11 weeks later since that interview, that Spotify has found its way higher up on Tesla's software priority queue. Could it be a part of version 10 that's expected here in about a month or two? Maybe. I would say, in my opinion, that's probably the absolute best case scenario. But what I would humbly suggest to all of you, and the attitude that I'll be taking toward this, is I would say don't expect it this year. Take solace, be joyful that it is apparently finally on the way here in North America. But I would say just don't expect it in 2019. Just when 2020 rolls around, then start getting fired up for it. But if it does drop in 2019, then it'll be kind of like an unexpected surprise. Like you'll be like, oh, cool, I wasn't expecting this quite so soon, yay! But especially if it doesn't drop with V10. I mean, so if it drops with V10, then obviously, boom, here it's out. But if it's not part of the initial V10 software release, at that point, I would say just think 2020 in your mind in order to calibrate your expectations to avoid disappointment wherever possible. But regardless, this is definitely excellent news courtesy of Elon Musk. More good news for those of you in wintry climates. Tesla has made available on their online store some new all-weather floor mats. Now, there are floor mats, all-weather mats already out. I've got them in my car. The difference between the new all-weather floor liners, as they're called, versus the existing all-weather interior mats are that the new floor liners have a wall on the sides. They're like a pan kind of thing. This is part of the product description on the Tesla site. Quote, unlike traditional floor mats, liners are comprised of vertical walls that ensure maximum protection to the footwell carpet and easy cleanup. Exclusive grid pattern crafted by Tesla's design studio, end quote. Now, I know a lot of people out there, particularly those of you in the aforementioned snowy winter climates, are fans of the 3D Max Spider brand. That's if that's news to you and you want to look into that, it's 3D MAX, 3D Max, and then it's, you say Spider, but it's actually, there's no S there. So 3D MAX PIDER. If you Google that with Tesla, you should find exactly what you're looking for. But what I was starting to say there is I know a lot of people like the 3D Max Spider brand, and those also have the walls on the sides to help keep more of that slush and stuff out of the carpets. But these official Tesla ones might be worth a look. Now, they are $50 more than the all-weather interior mats. So the regular mats, the all-weather mats that I've got in my car are $145 for the set, front and rear. And the liners with the walls on the sides are $195. Now, I think I've said this before, but I know I've got some new listeners out there. I bought just the mats when they first came out I guess it would have been not quite a year ago, maybe like 9 months ago or so now. it was just ahead of the San Francisco Bay Area's winter rainy season. We don't get the snow here, but we do get plenty of rain. And I'll tell you, my intention was to put the carpets back in after the rainy season ended, but I have to say I like the look of them so much. They're very nice and subtle. They've got a nice little Tesla logo on there on each the front and the back, and they're nice and easy to clean up. I like them so much that I'm leaving them in the car all the time. I'm just gonna keep them in there, and my carpets are actually sitting down in the garage, ironically, just collecting dust, which is what they would be doing if they were in the car too. They'd be collecting dust off and dirt off my shoes. But in any case, I'm a big fan. So take a look on the shop.tesla.com site if you're curious to look at either of those options. That's right. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, though, one other difference between the two, besides the vertical walls that I wanted to point out in case you're curious, the only other difference I can see is that the back seat piece it's one piece rather than two pieces that overlay sort of connect with each other with the mats, which I like the fact that the liners it's just one piece. It's no big deal with the two-piece mats in the back there, but I do think it's nice that they went ahead and went with a one piece for the liners. Finally this week, here's an interesting Tesla story that you probably never thought you would hear, but here it is. A Model 3 owner, a woman, has implanted her Model 3 RFID chip from her keycard into her arm so that she can access and operate her car without a phone or a keycard or anything else needed. So I saw this story reported on Teslarati, who writes, Tesla owner, maker, and software engineer Amy DD has undertaken the ultimate hack, implanting the chip from inside her Model 3 Valet keycard into her arm. And Teslarati continues, to obtain the chip from the Valet key, Amy dissolved the card's plastic in acetone. She then had it encapsulated in a biopolymer to make it safe for her body, calling in the expertise of Amal Grafstra of DangerousThings.com, a company specializing in, quote, biohacking and RFID chip implants. Finally, Amy's chip was implanted by a studio experienced in body modification called Shaman Modifications. And here is a clip, and don't worry, there's nothing gross about this, but this is just Amy talking a little bit about it.
So I kind of roped him into my Tesla hack because he's all this knowledge. And when I dissolved the chip, I sent it to him and he encapsulated it in biopolymer, which is safe to use for the body and under the skin. Talked to a few doctors. They were a little weary about doing this because it's kind of a questionable thing. End up finding a guy that does body modifications and things like that. He's very familiar with the process and sterilizing everything and the biopolymer and the flex and how it needs to be installed.
Well, there you go. I have to say, Amy is brave. She's braver than I would ever be, 100%. I'm pretty happy with my phone serving as the key to my car. And hey, I will say though, my phone is practically a part of my body at this point. I'm so darn dependent on the thing, for better and for worse. But I'll say one other thing about this. This really is the ultimate party trick. Like, no one can one-up you. No one, meaning Amy. It's just because she's the only one I'm aware of that's ever done this. If Amy were to make a bet with somebody, or was trying to one-up her friends at a party in some sort of good-spirited way, it would be pretty darn hard to top this. There is another video of Amy actually getting the chip implanted, but I'm not going to play that for you because, number one, the audio's no good. It's just music over the footage of it happening. But even if it wasn't, I wouldn't want to play that because I feel like that might send some people unsubscribing from the podcast, just the sounds of that. In fact, even just talking about it right now might be grossing people out. So I'm going to move on, but suffice it to say that Amy successfully did this. So, I tip my cap. Again, she is more brave than I would ever be to do that. So kudos to you, Amy. You are a much braver Model 3 owner than I am. But that is your Tesla news for this week. Stick with me, though, because coming right back, I've got plenty of awesome Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls lined up from all of you guys right after this. It is hotline time, your time to shine with your phone calls. If you've got a Tesla-related question, comment, or discussion topic, I welcome you to send it in. I invite you to send it in. Two easy ways to do that. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software, record a question 90 seconds or less, please, so I can get to as many calls each week as possible. And you can email the file to me when you're done at teslapodcast@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can take that same 90-second question and leave it as a message on the Ride the Lightning hotline. And to do that, you call toll-free 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And hey, if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. Let's kick it off with Gary in Chicago. Wants to talk Sentry mode. Go ahead, Gary.
Hey, Ryan. How you doing? This is Gary calling from Chicago. I wanted to call with a question about what we could expect in V10, specifically regarding Sentry mode. Do you know anything if we can expect all 8 cameras to be included both while driving and in park? Also, do you know if there's any ideas of live streaming coming to our phones via the mobile app? Just a couple questions there. Maybe V10 will have it, maybe not. If you don't have any answers, maybe you could throw this to Elon next time you have his ear on Twitter. Thank you so much for your podcast. I really do appreciate it. It's one of my favorite sources for entertainment and information when it comes to Tesla. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the kind words, Gary. This is definitely one to try and catch Elon with, and in fact, someone did. Elon was asked, will we be able to see Sentry video also in regard to version 10 of the software? And Elon responded, working on upgrades to Sentry, ... And that was it. So personally, I don't think we're ever going to get all 8 cameras, just because the other 2 in the front, in the assembly there behind the rearview mirror up there at the top of the windshield, are arguably a bit redundant for Sentry mode purposes. In fact, I think you could kind of even make that same argument about the B-pillar cameras that go, pretty well straight out, because the repeater cameras go all the way back as far as in the immediate surrounding vicinity of the car. But I'll tell you, it would be nice to at least get the rear one, the backup camera for sure, just for any rear-end accident situations or potentially catching, ne'er-do-wells in situations like with the whole window smashing that's been going on rampantly in the Bay Area and certainly other places too. But, the backup camera would be a good one to get. And I'd sure love to not only be able to access any feed from any camera live from the phone exactly as you suggest, Gary, but I would also really like to review the Sentry mode events right on the car's screen before I leave wherever the heck I am when I get in the car and it says 4 events detected. Perhaps I'm reading a little bit too much between the lines here, but I think that's what Elon's hinting at with his tweet is having it so you can review it right on the screen in the car. Well, I know I'm kind of pulling that out of thin air there, but that's just what my gut tells me. We'll see how right or wrong I am here in the not too distant future. Let's go to Joost next from the Netherlands. He's looking to upgrade his Tesla and has a question about that. Joost, you're on the air.
Hey, Ryan, Joost from the Netherlands again, still an avid listener every week. I was one of those lucky few who got the offer to upgrade their S75D to an SP100D Ludicrous, the new Raven model. I'm getting that next Friday, August 9th. So I got the full option except for the full self-driving, and I'm having a tough time deciding if I should go ahead and do that now before the August 16 price hike. Or wait because, well, Tesla has been known to move around their pricing quite a bit. On the other hand, they haven't lowered the pricing for full self-driving, particularly in the last year or so. And they, of course, said it's going to be more expensive going into the future. On the other hand, since I'm in Europe, the new legislation a couple of months ago has limited the steering angle of autopilot systems, which kind of cripples it a little bit. And I don't know if that is going to cripple full self-driving in the future or not. So on the one hand, I know that I will want it in the future if it's going to work, and there's a good chance I'll be paying more for it then. On the other hand, yeah, with the legislation and Tesla's stunts with the prices, it might be a good decision to wait. So I'm torn, and I'm looking for your advice, maybe from your audience. Thanks for your excellent work, and I hope to hear from you.
First of all, Joost, congratulations on the upgrade. To your question, you have clearly thought this through, and I understand your dilemma. You know, the first question I think you have to ask yourself, if you haven't already, is how long am I going to keep this car? If it's for 5+ years, then personally, my opinion is that tilts the scales in favor of getting the full self-driving option now. But you're right, Tesla's pricing model is volatile, and the EU has more restrictive legislation as of now with autopilot and full self-driving applications. Now, my wife, a financial planner, would probably have a better answer to this that would somehow involve the time value of money. Investing that full self-driving money now and maybe getting a better return on it by the time you're really ready and eager to purchase full self-driving when the features have rolled out in your country. So that's a consideration, but that doesn't really account for Elon's repeated promises to raise the price of full self-driving, starting with the $1,000 increase that is imminent. So that's how I'd look at the situation, I think. I hope that helps you in some way. Enjoy the car no matter what you decide. Let's head out to Pennsylvania here and talk to Brian, sticking to the subject of full self-driving. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, Ryan, this is Brian from Walton, Pennsylvania. So Elon on the earnings call mentioned the full self-driving. People were not buying it. We're not taking the bite, grabbing it, whatever. But Tesla keeps raising the price on it. I get it. I understand it. You're getting more features, so they're going to raise the price. Makes sense. But my comment, or the way I see it, is that people don't see it worth the money, thus not buying it. So if you want people to buy it, maybe your price is too high. Just my thought. Thanks again.
It's an interesting thought, Brian. What I took away from Elon's comments on the earnings call about that was that they expect a huge conversion once they actually have full self-driving features to roll out in the real world. And he might be right about that. And it seems that he's trying to leverage that belief as an incentive to convert more people now, i.e., we know you're going to want this when we actually deliver the features, so buy it now because we're going to charge more for it when it's out in the real world. You know, it's a gamble. You're right. It is a gamble. Thank you, as always, Brian, for your excellent calls. Let's head up to another regular caller, Rich from Seattle. And we're still talking full self-driving here. Go ahead, Rich.
Hey, Ryan. Rich Tong here from Seattle. Man, awesome podcast. Listen to it incessantly on our 5,000-mile road trip, but that's another story. just wanted to make a comment on what are FSD margins and so forth. I think you can sort of calculate it. I mean, they've said that they think they get to 25% gross margins, and now that Elon has said 30, I think the basic math would be 5 incremental percent for FSD. If the full average selling price is to $50,000, that would imply $2,500 for FSD on average. Since FSD is about $3,000 now, that sort of says they want an 80 to 90% attach rate. So maybe that's one way to back into it, given numbers. I could all be wrong, but it sort of does seem like a lot of FSD attached to get to 30% gross margin. Who knows what their real numbers are, but that's one way to get a quick estimate. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Rich. I agree. An internal target of 80 to 90% seems way too optimistic, even for Elon Musk's refreshingly optimistic worldview. Still, I can't really argue with your thinking. It is another thing to add to my list of questions for Elon if I ever do get the opportunity to sit down and interview him again. Cheers, Rich. Thanks so much. Let's keep it rolling here. We're off to Florida to talk to Dave, a multi-Tesla owner who, again, I think this is our last full self-driving topic. So Dave, take it away.
Hey, Ryan. Dave from Fort Pierce, Florida. Current Tesla owner, been so since 2012. We got our first signature. We now have 2 Model S's and a Model 3. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Wondering what you would think about Tesla having FSD be attached to an owner rather than a vehicle. That way, current owners of FSD could upgrade to the Raven without having to repay for the FSD. Tesla would be able to take their vehicle in trade and resell it to a customer and perhaps sell them on the FSD, so they would not be out any revenue for that. I expect that a program like this would last until, say, we're feature complete on FSD. Wondering what your thoughts on that are, and great job on the show. Keep it up. Look forward to the response.
Dave, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for your call. I do think there is a fair and reasonable way that this could and arguably should be done, particularly as no full self-driving features as defined by the full self-driving package's original description back when Autopilot 2.0 first rolled out in late 2016. None of those features have been delivered yet. Now, I agree that it would be a good way to incentivize longtime owners such as yourself to upgrade while still allowing Tesla to either profit or hopefully at least break even on the trade by reselling the car without full self-driving unless the new owner pays for it. Perhaps it could be that any owner that bought full self-driving back when it was the complement to the enhanced Autopilot package could be given like a single-use token, digital token obviously, to transfer that full self-driving package to a new Tesla. And maybe you even limit it to S and X owners, since those are the premium models that have also been around the longest for folks like you to be affected by this. I think that would be a nice gesture towards veteran Tesla owners. So yes, I am with you, Dave. Here's hoping that something like that may come to pass in the near future. Let's head to Arizona and talk to Chad, who just got a Model 3. Chad, you're on the air.
Hi, Ryan. My name is Chad. I just bought a brand new Model 3 and have a question for you in the audience. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and was surprised that my air conditioner seemed to be running pretty much constantly. I read that there is something called cabin overheat protection. And the question is the cabin overheat protection necessary? Does it actually protect the equipment and the interior of your car, or is it more for protecting kids or things that maybe got left in the car, or maybe just for more comfort when you come back to your car, it'll be cooler? Thank you for answering the question. Thanks. Bye.
Chad, congratulations on your Model 3. I am happy to answer your question. In fact, you already did. It's the second one. Yes, it is just for comfort and convenience. So I hope that clears it up for you. Thanks so much for calling in. We go next to Norway, to a caller who wants to talk about track mode. Go ahead, caller from Norway, and I'm not saying a name because I confess here, I listen, sometimes it's just like it breaks up a little bit. I can't quite get the name, and I don't want to get the name totally wrong. So that's my secret there. I'm trying to avoid embarrassment because it's no fun if you hear your call and the host slaughters your name. So anyway, let's go to Norway for this next call as Daisy the Boxer Puppy drinks up behind me.
Hello, Ryan. It's Mats from Norway again. Still love the car. I just did almost 5,500 kilometer Euro trip in it. And now I don't condone in any way, sense or form dangerous driving or anything like that. But if you're in a safe environment and snow falls or it rains or in any other way, you feel that you have space and nothing is dangerous. The drivetrain, why you have the performance cars have the track mode, and I have a long range, so I want fun too. Why can't we have a track light mode or maybe a sport mode or something in our cars, or maybe pay extra for it? Fine, it's all software. That's the beauty of it. So. Maybe we should just carpet bomb Elon on Tesla to just get it. Anyway, what's your thought on it? Keep up the show. Do love it. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for your call. Well, I'm no engineer, but I do believe that there's nothing technically stopping Tesla from doing track mode with the long-range all-wheel drive non-performance Model 3s. I do think there would be a technical limitation for doing it on a rear-wheel drive long-range Model 3 or mid-range or standard range, as track mode is specifically designed for the dual-motor setup. But yeah, I guess this is just one of those things that adds value, either perceived or actual, to the additional cost that one pays for the performance model. If it makes you feel any better about it, I have yet to use it, and I know there are plenty of performance Model 3 owners out there that have, but I haven't. The day that track mode was added to my car, I went down to my office parking garage after I got the software update, and I pushed the track mode button. I turned it on. I heard the fans kick into overdrive as they started to turbo cool the battery pack in anticipation of some flogging around the track. And then I turned it off, and I haven't turned it back on since. So it's neat to have, but obviously it's not practical in any sort of day-to-day, usefulness there. So at least for me, I know that there are plenty of people out there that are getting plenty of use out of it, but not so much here on the mean streets of San Francisco. I want to go next. Speaking of San Francisco, let's stay in the Bay Area and go to Brian in Menlo Park, who wants to talk about autopilot and speed limit signs. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, Ryan. This is Brian in Menlo Park. I had a question about what you were talking about in episode 209 about reading speed limit signs and city signage. And I was curious if people found this is working already to a certain extent. And the reason why I say that is we took a friend's Model 3 into Joshua Tree, and there's no service, so none of the map information was showing up. It was just a gray grid. But as we drove through the park, we noticed the speed limit sign on the car would change. It would go from 25 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour. So it somehow knew the transition, and it happened right at the sign. So I was wondering if it's actually reading speed limit signs already. So that was one question. And then one piece of probably bad news is, I don't know if you've been to Menlo Park lately, but in listening to your discussion with Mike Falzone and reminiscing about the original Menlo Park showroom, it's actually been bulldozed, unfortunately, and it's getting replaced by a mixed-use building. So that structure is no more. So it's part of folklore and history. So thought you'd want to know. Thanks for the podcast. It's fantastic. Keep it up. Thanks.
Hey, Brian, I think it's GPS based. So if that's the case, it wouldn't need the LTE signal. I'm not 100% sure on that, though, I confess. Now, as for the original Tesla showroom in Menlo Park, boy, it is a shame to hear that building has been razed. That's a piece of history right there. I mean, it really is. Like one day because believe me, there will be books written and movies made about Tesla and Elon and the entire Tesla story. I guarantee you, probably in 10 years is when we'll start to see the first of those, when Tesla is just a giant, ubiquitous company that has helped move the world forward to sustainable transport and make electric cars of a normal thing, a normal, everyday, common thing. That Menlo Park showroom will be, hey, that's where they got their start, selling roadsters out of an old, I believe I heard it was an old Chevy dealership. It was definitely an old dealership for somebody. I think it was an old Chevy dealership, but yeah, it's a shame that it's gone. Hearing that, it makes me glad that I got to go there, and I spent some time there drooling over the original roadsters in that showroom back in the day. I mean, heck, that is where my personal Tesla journey began. When I went there, as you heard last week, and other times too, for the DeLorean Club event, and then went back for the Roadster test drive. And that's where it all started for me. So sad to see that building go. Brian, thank you for calling in. Couple more calls this week. Let's go to Ken from Nova Scotia up in Halifax. Go ahead, Ken.
Hi, my name is Ken, calling from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Love your podcast, listening since near the beginning. We have a Model 3 long range for a year now. Love the car. Awesome. Love your podcast. Also, Joe Mode. I suspect Joe Mode is reference to a Joey, which is a small kangaroo living in the pouch. Maybe that's why it's called Joe Mode. Over and out.
Thanks, Ken. I like that theory. I don't really have anything to add to that. I saw somebody on YouTube leave that same comment on YouTube, on my YouTube channel from that episode. So it's there's maybe a little something to that. I wonder. We'll have to see what time reveals for that one. Thanks for calling in. And last and certainly not least, Kaz calling in with a topic of the Model X and an issue that a friend of his is having. We'll see if I can help out at all. Kaz, go ahead.
Hey, Ryan and Tesla fans. I've got a topic of discussion thanks to a conversation I actually just had with a Model X owner who, side note, license plate was Robot CR, robot car. I thought that was really cool. But this gentleman owns a Model X, and he drives from Orange County to San Diego and back quite a bit. He's always in the car. And he mentioned that there's actually a pretty frequent issue with the software crashing while he drives. Like his screen just goes black. He can't see his speed or anything. I don't know if this is something happening in the S or the 3, or I was wondering if anybody that drives a lot, like long distances, has had the same issue, and if there's any word on this being mitigated. Thanks very much.
Well, Kaz, I can't speak for everyone out there, but based on what I am always reading on the forums and on Reddit, and what I hear from my audience in phone calls and emails, this appears to be an anomaly. I think it's probably worth that friend to make a service appointment, and they might choose to reflash the car's firmware or take some other action, but this sounds like an isolated incident. I know that's not of great help, that I don't have a direct, perfect, exact answer for you, but I hope that helps at least point you in the right direction. Thanks so much for calling in. Thanks to all of you for calling in. Boy, I do appreciate the participation in this segment of the show, because as I've said before, I love this part. I love when I get to hear from you guys, get some different voices on here. I appreciate that pretty much everybody's really good about keeping the calls to a minute and a half or less. Like, it's really great. It's just such a fun half of the show here. I thank you for it. So again, if you'd like to participate, if you've got a Tesla question, comment, discussion topic, either record it on your smartphone and send the file to me at teslapodcast@gmail.com, or call in and leave it as a voicemail on the toll-free Ride the Lightning hotline. That number, again, 1-888-989-8752. I'll be back with your pro tip of the week and some parting thoughts for you right after this. Well, it was nice to get back to the spirit of adventure after being gone for a week, although thankfully I wasn't in other cars. There was no rental car. We were just locked in Disneyland for a week, which is hardly a bad thing. That's a very fun, very good thing. But yeah, felt good to get back in the car. Had a software update. I got the chess game when I got home for 28.2, I think the version number was, along with some other little enhancements. So that was nice. The only thing is I haven't had time to wash it. Now it's covered in a nice thick layer of dust. And with my parents here this weekend, I probably won't have time to give it a proper cleaning. But that's okay. One more week won't hurt anything. For the pro tip of the week, I thank everybody out there that's called in with one, since I've gotten several responses so far trying to build up another little cache of them to last for the coming winter, I suppose. Now it's I emptied the vault on those on the vacation episode last week, and this week Scott from Atlanta calls in with this week's pro tip of the week. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey Ryan, this is Scott, first-time caller calling from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a long-time listener, and on episode 209, you had a caller mention they were the annoying beeps when they're parking the car, and you mentioned it also. Well, if you are in the vertical view of the car when it's showing you distances to these annoying objects and beeps, if you look just to the left of the car, somewhere on the left side of the screen, there's a speaker icon, and you can tap it and mute all of these beeps, and they won't happen anymore. Hope that helps. Love the show. Talk to you later.
I love that one, Scott. Thank you so much. I confess, I'd always wondered what that was, but I never thought to try pressing it in order to mute it. Now I know. Thank you very much. In fact, a ton of people called in about this one after it had been brought up. So I want to just make sure to shout out everybody that I did hear everybody's calls on this. We had JP from Tennessee, Kevin from Buffalo, Mike from the Motor City, Ben from North Carolina, and Steve from Michigan all called in with this as well. Thanks to all of you. One other comment on this, though. I do wish that this feature could be GPS tagged, kind of like the folding mirrors and your HomeLink system, and if you have a Model S or Model X, the air suspension. Because what I'd like to do with this, ideally, is mute it at home, where it just goes ballistic in and out of my super tight garage, and even if I'm going to hit something, it's probably not going to save me, because it's like the boy who cried wolf down there. But I would still want it in any other parking situation, just not my own garage. I wish there was a way that I could do that. So if anybody from the Tesla software team is listening, I would love to have a toggle for that, if at all possible. All right, that about wraps it up for this week's show. I want to begin by mentioning abstractocean.com. A wonderful source of Tesla accessories, mostly for you, or mostly for your car, and some stuff for you as well. Tempered glass screen protectors for Model 3. They've got the center console wraps in all different styles. For those of you interested in getting rid of the look at it wrong and it scratches and or fingerprints, default piano black glossy. In the Model 3, they've got the Roadster style TESLA lettering for the back of your car. I've seen a number of those out there in the wild here in the San Francisco Bay Area, etc., etc. You can use the coupon code RTL Podcast at checkout in order to get 15% off of your very first order. Meanwhile, Immaculate Reflections, Jeff, the wonderful detailing wizard behind Immaculate Reflections, not only has the $100 off any ceramic coating package for listeners of the show right now, or partial paint protection film package, or if you do the full body paint protection film, he's offering $250 off. In addition, he texted me this week. He said he wants to reinstate the military discount that he did for a little while, I think last year as well. So that is an extra $100 off with your military or veteran ID card. And yes, that does stack. So that is in addition to those other detailing services that Jeff offers. It's clay bar and, full wash wax detail if you want to do that. There's paint correction, paint protection film, ceramic coating, any of it, all of it, whatever you're looking to do to pretty up and protect your Tesla, Jeff and Immaculate Reflections will take care of you. So look him up on his website, which is irdetailing.com. As for me, as I mentioned, you can email me anytime, teslapodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter and or Instagram @DMC_Ryan. And then if you'd like to support me beyond simply listening, which that's always the big thing is I appreciate you listening, but if you do want to support the time, effort, love, and expertise and research that goes into this show every week, the best way to do that is on Patreon. You can learn more on my Patreon page, which is found at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Patreon is spelled Patreon. I sincerely appreciate it if you even have the time to give that a look. Let's see here. I think, yes, the last one. The Jada products, the version 2 of the wireless charging pad for Model 3, and then the brand new USB hub for Model 3. Both of those are available if you want to get one or both. Please use my referral link. Sadly, I don't have a discount for this one, but if you're just going to grab it anyway, the USB hub is $70, and the wireless charging pad for Qi-compatible wireless smartphone or wireless phones is $100, which, hey, you buy it once and you've got it for the life of the car. So if you are interested in buying either of those products, I use the wireless charging pad and I love it. And it's as I said, it is performance Model 3 proof. You can launch all day and your phone will stay put and stay charging. But yeah, my referral link for that, if you wouldn't mind ordering via this link, which is getjada.com. That's JEDA for Jada. getjada.com/REF/8. I think that mostly wraps it up. Of course, you can subscribe to the podcast for free, just meaning the podcast downloads to you. It pushes out to you each and every week. You can do that on iTunes. You can do that on Google Podcasts. There's Stitcher, TuneIn, which, of course, TuneIn is also what the Teslas have. So, you can subscribe and listen to the podcast in your Tesla. I'm also on Spotify, on YouTube, of course, audio only on YouTube. And then that's pretty much those are all the major places to get podcasts, I think. I want to close, of course, by thanking the Patreon producers, the wonderful folks supporting me at the producer tier, which means they get their name shouted out every episode, which I'll do now. They get the monthly bonus episode every month, all those extra Ride the Lightning hotline calls that come in, and they get the early access to each week's episode, which will be even a little earlier this week since I'm recording on a Thursday night. But I want to shout out the newest Patreon producers, Sunil Joseph and Dennis Peak. Thank you both so much. In addition to DJ Harbaugh, Pete White, Wolfgang Obergen, George Cassiopo, David Brander, Jonathan Wales, Alexi Heft, Logan Willis, Matthew Parra, Michael Lester, Robert Miracle, Jason Chalukas, Joe Edgel, Tim Hyde, Marcus Meyenshine, Lars Hoffman, Lawton from Chicago, Peter Chalet, Rome Strack. By the way, Rome, congratulations on getting your car back. His Model S that he just gotten was in the body shop for a while. Very happy that he is reunited with Archer, as he has named his car. I love that show so much. I'm so glad it's coming back, and it's going to be back in the sort of current timeline. They're done with the. If you've never watched Archer, Highly recommend it. It is super funny. Anyway, David Vakil, Ulrich Lassa, Luke A., Eric Randolph, David Nondahl, Gabriel Salays, Jerry and Mary Smith, Brian Hope, Bill Royko, Lyle Austin, Joel Sapp, Dory and Steve Guberman, Luxendary.com, Michael Waddle, Daniel Grummer, Josh, Jeremy, Tesla Owners Taiwan, Jeremy Harris, Rob Brewer, My Tesla Adventure, Ron Lee, Larry Lynch, Chris Konesnik, John Cody, Matthew Wright, Aaron Appleby, Charlie Gillespie, Kaz Barnes, Neil Weaver, and David Perella. Thank you all so very much for your fantastic support of the podcast. And that will do it for me because my voice is toast. My daughter had a cough, like seemingly it was just a dry cough, nothing, the last few days of our vacation, which she'd picked up, of course, at the week before at a summer day camp, because here in the Bay Area, I don't know about where you live, but when I was a kid, when it was summer, you were just at home. Because a lot of times, I mean, at least for me, I had one stay-at-home parent, but here in the Bay Area, both parents got to work in order to survive in the Bay Area. So, you got to do something with your kids. So you got to sign them up for a different camp, like a day camp every week. So she catches a little cough there, sort of follows her on our vacation, and now, of course, I've got it. But hey, I can't complain. I'm just glad I made it through the show without my voice giving out. If you can hear it, I apologize. I want to sound good. I take a lot of pride in trying to sound good and not sound icky. So, in any case, for a sleeping, snoring, soundly snoozing Daisy the Boxer Puppy, my name is Ryan McCaffrey. Thank you all very much for joining me for another week of Ride the Lightning. Again, your time is, in my opinion, time's the most valuable resource we all have. You can't get any more of it in a day, in a week, and it is. I just appreciate you spending an hour plus of it with me and talking about all things Tesla each and every week. It's fun, I do this because it's fun. It is. I would not do it if it felt like work. Love doing this. I love that you choose to spend this time with me. So thank you all so much. Happy electric motoring, and I will see you all again next week.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.